there's no question that this is a critical season for him. And, can he – you don't want to take away his improvisational abilities because that's obviously what I think separates him and makes him different from other quarterbacks. And he can do some special and fascinating things, but at the same time, those plays aren't always going to be there. And so the foundation of not holding on to the football, understanding where your hot read is, knowing what adjustments your receivers can make, getting better feel for protections, all those things that come with, a quarterback entering his third season. You would hope that those are up to speed.
Appreciate you streaming in with us here on Birds 365. Ric Serritella, Jody McDonald, and Eric Edholm from NFL.com changed his tack this offseason. That's a horse racing reference from a jockey who moves from one track to the other, changing one's tack. He has done his from Yahoo to NFL.com. Eric, are you ready for some football tonight? Hall of Fame action? I take it you're going to be in front of your TV. You're not running off to Canton after you finish up with us, are you?
I hope. I'd love to run off to Canton. I've never been before. This is, I've been covering the league for a minute here, and it's the one trip I need to make. So the best I can do tonight is parking myself on the couch, taking a couple notes, sending a few texts to people while during the game. It's just like old times.
Yeah, that Canton trip, I had a chance to do it a few years back for the first time, and it's just an incredible experience. Whether you work in the media or you're just a fan, it's just the incredible experience. I recommend anyone who's a football fan to just do it at least once in your lifetime.
Yep.
You'll remember it forever. But congrats again on the NFL.com gig. I know you've got your finger on the pulse when it comes to a national landscape. Not few, if any, do it better. Tell us where I just mentioned before you came on, I'm going to be going on the college training camp tour. Yeah. Tell us where the Eric Edholm training camp tour is going to take them.
It's going to be a lot of home this year. We kind of got the deal done a little bit late, and so schedules were already kind of made and stuff like that. I had to cancel a trip to Indianapolis. I was going to try to stop in. I know the Lions and Colts have joint practices coming up, but this is going to be a little bit of a different year for me. I will try to make some stops at some of the local schools around here, Rick. I'll be Northern Illinois is about 40 miles down the road. I've got Northwestern about 25 miles. Madison's about an hour and a half away. So I'll make a couple of short trips here and check in with some of those people. And during the college season, I might be able to get out to a game or two, especially those Thursday, Friday games. I like those a lot. I think NFL scouts do too, because it allows them to follow their team or make weekend plans that differ a little bit. So yeah, we'll see. It's going to be a draft-heavy role, but right now I'm doing a lot of stuff around the NFL and camp reports and things like that.
All right, so let me go to your draft responsibilities. Guys coming forward to the National Football League, you've already gotten, seems like your eye focus on those who will be on campus this year and then playing in the league in 2023. But I know how much time and effort you put into last year's draft and leading into 2022.
Yeah.
This year's rookies in the National Football League, they've cut back on camps across the board. They did so because that was collectively bargained into an agreement. The teams are doing less. They're just putting in less hours, less strenuous practice. It's more about film work and classroom work than it is. Are we going to see a reduction, just generally speaking across the board, in impact rookies have? And is it because that's what the NFL is now? They're just not putting as much time and effort into being prepared as they had previously, which makes it harder on rookies.
Yeah, I think in order to do a full, comprehensive study on what the effect of an altered off-season plan would be, back, obviously not compared to the old days, but the more recent old days where the schedule was a little bit different. It was a little more intense. They had a little bit more on-field work, that sort of thing, a little more time in pads, what have you, and kind of just go year by year and see what the trend is to see how many snaps are being played by rookies, how many snaps at certain positions, quarterback, obviously. I think we've seen some positions become more instant impact ones like wide receiver. generation ago, when we were talking football, we'd always say it takes 3 years for a wide receiver to develop in this league. That still can be the case, but obviously there are Jamar Chases and Justin Jeffersons and other people like that. And, Devontae Smith, obviously last year too, who can step right in and be pro quality players. So, the talent is always going to be the bottom line. But, I think if somebody did the work to find out what is the real tangible effect of this, are young players having fewer opportunities or less time to acclimate, it would probably, be a little bit more revealing, because I don't know the answer, truthfully. A lot of it's going to be anecdotal in my experience.
Jalen Hurts, not a rookie, but a young quarterback, Eric. Some would say he's still needs to develop. Now, he didn't play a single snap, I believe, last preseason. He doesn't expect to play a single snap this preseason. Are you a fan of that? And what's your take on the Jalen Hurts season, this upcoming season? Do you think he takes a step forward, a step backward? Is he the guy that can take the Eagles there?
Yeah, we've obviously seen teams take sort of vastly different approaches to the whole playing quarterbacks in the preseason thing. And, obviously we heard coaches gripe about wanting, more, keep the 4-game preseason slate. Only 2 teams will have that. The rest will be 3 games. And, Sean McVay, for instance, I think his first year with the Rams played Jared Goff in the first team offense, like 6 series or something, 7, so, it can vary from team to team and approach to approach. And, it obviously depends a lot on the quarterback and how much they know the offense. For Jalen, obviously this is, nobody's, saying that this isn't a crucial year for him, and that, the AJ Brown move and, getting Smith in his second year, and, having Dallas Goedert in his prime, and, assuming Miles Sanders is still going to be a vibrant playmaker, and that offensive line coming together and everything, there's no question that this is a critical season for him. And, can he, you don't want to take away his improvisational abilities, because that's obviously what I think separates him and makes him different from other quarterbacks. And he can do some special and fascinating things, but at the same time, those plays aren't always going to be there. And so the foundation of not holding on to the football, understanding where your hot read is, knowing what adjustments your receivers can make, getting better feel for protections, all those things that come with, a quarterback entering his 3rd season. You would hope that those are up to speed, and that he can maximize what I think is very good talent. But you always have, I always had my reservations watching him in college, but it was hard not to keep watching him. He was a fascinating player.
I doubly don't know if you actually put together a list that made it to print, be it a website, Yahoo and or NFL, but I'm sure you've at least contemplated it. The tight end position coming up this year in the National Football League. I think you have to put Dallas Goedert in your top 10. Some would put him in the top 5. I think he's just outside the top 5, but not as far down as 10. Where would you rank Dallas Goedert in the tight ends coming into this season? All things considered, quarterback included, what Jalen Hurts has done, hasn't done. Where would you rank Dallas Goedert in NFL tight ends for 2022?
Yeah, there's a spot open, right? Gronk's out, at least for now, right? So, there's guys fighting to get into that top group there. And, I think Travis Kelce certainly belongs at the top. George Kittle has got to be in the discussion. Mark Andrews has been a really solid and consistent performer. Darren Waller, even with an up and down year last year. Those are the names that I probably put ahead of him. And I would say, Kyle Pitts, based on what he did as a rookie, look, I don't care about I think it was 1 touchdown or whatever. His receiving work, obviously, putting up, I think the 2nd most yards by a rookie tight end ever, if I'm not mistaken, show you that he could be a special talent. So I might put him ahead of him too, but then I don't know that there's another name off the top of my head. There might be somebody else who ascends, and obviously Zach Ertz or somebody like that who's been doing it for a long time. I think Goddard's better than, say, like Dalton Schultz, who obviously was a big factor this offseason, and, players like that. Hunter Henry, maybe Dawson Knox this year jumps up, but still, I think, just Goddard's got, a great opportunity this season. He's done really nice things for the most part. And I think after the Ertz trade, you saw him be the kind of the lead role a little bit more in that position. And, with Brown, Smith, Goedert, that's a pretty nice little trio right there, I think.
Yeah, I would tend to agree there, Eric. And since we're doing rankings, I know Eagles fans, especially in the chat, are curious to hear where do you rank the Eagles in the division? Where do you rank the Eagles in the NFC?
I think I can be talked into them winning the division. I really can. I mean, Dallas finished last year, I believe, first in yards and first in points, maybe too. I mean, they were, pretty darn special offensively, and defensively led the league, I believe, in turnovers as well. That latter statistic is the one that makes me wonder, boy, is that repeatable? Is that the kind of thing that translates year to year? We've obviously seen the Seahawks and Lovie Smith's Bears and other teams be productive from a turnover standpoint year to year, but historically that doesn't always carry over. That's the kind of thing where you can go from 38 turnovers forced one year to 22 the next, and it makes a massive difference on your team. That's one possession a game you're losing essentially. So that's the kind of thing I worry about. They seem stuck on going with Ezekiel Elliott as their main back and not shifting to Tony Pollard. It worries me about their receivers, their offensive line. I don't think we're talking about the number 1, 2, 3, or 4 ranked offense in the league this year. I think they'll come back a little. And I also think their defense, just in terms of big plays, will step back. Whereas the Eagles, if they can make a incremental improvement against good quarterbacks, that was the one thing that stood out to me last year, was that, defensively, the rankings were pretty good. Overall, you'd say, boy, Jonathan Gannon did a pretty good job. But I know there's heat on him. I know there's higher expectations. I know the people who saw him getting head coaching interviews are saying, wait, really? But I can also say that if they just make better improvements and make bigger plays against those top tier quarterbacks, it could result in, 2, 3, 4 more wins. So I give them a real good shot. In the NFC, I would say they're in that kind of second tier, but we're not talking about as a heavyweight conference like we have in the AFC side of things. So they're right in the thick of it, I think.
Thank you for going to the plus minus, the turnover category from last year in the NFL. There were 3 teams that ended up as a plus minus at 0, which means as many turnovers as they had giveaways. And sure enough, the Eagles were in that group. And if you rank the plus minuses, it was 15, 16, 17, the dead middle of the National Football League. That's exactly where the Eagles were.
Yeah.
They add Hassan Reddick. They add James Bradbury on the outside, who's been killing it in camp. If there's going to be an addition or a minus to one or the other, I think the Eagles are going to be much better on the plus side. Put Jordan Davis in there as a disrupting force in the middle of the defensive line. You believe the Eagles can be a plus this year rather than a dead 0 like they were last year?
Yeah, I mean, Bradbury got his hands on a lot of passes the last couple of years, especially 2 years ago with the Giants. I mean, he was, felt like he was getting 1 or 2 pass deflections per game, making some interceptions, getting his hands on balls and forcing some balls loose as well. We're probably going to have to wait for Nakobe Dean, but Jordan Davis, as you said, obviously such a fascinating study. Rick, I know you probably watched him extensively, and just to figure out what kind of defense he'll fit in, how he'll be used, how much can you get out of him? You may be able to sit Fletcher Cox a little bit more. I know he's a different player. You may be able to sit Javon Hargrave a little bit more. But, again, different type of guy. But still, having that unique type of defender in the middle, I think, is going to make a difference, even if he's not the one forcing the turnovers or having the sacks. Because as we know, his production was a little meager at Georgia. But think about what he opens up for other people and how much space he occupies. So he just fascinates me. I think a better play on the back 7. The Eagles will make more of those turnovers and big plays come.
Yeah, that depth on both the defensive and offensive line, the Eagles are stacked up pretty well. I'm going to fast forward here to week 1 because you mentioned you were almost going to the Colts and Lions scrimmage. The Lions week 1 opponent for the Eagles. They're going to be on Hard Knocks, obviously, which I'm excited for. I think that'll be a lot of fun with Dan Campbell. But, Jody, he's laying the points. I know that much week 1. He thinks it's going to be a blowout, not even close. I'm a little bit different. I think this Lions team is young. They're hungry. They're on the upstart. They made some additions. I still think the Eagles eke this win out, but I think it's going to be a little bit closer than what MacMan here is predicting. What's your take?
I mean, the Lions, it's such an interesting thing with them because I feel like every 2 or 3 years, I always say, like, keep an eye on these guys. Like, their time is coming, and it's teams like the Chargers, we've done it too. They're on a little bit of a different end of the spectrum too, but I think you're right. It's hard not to get a little bit excited. Does Jared Goff limit their appeal to a certain degree? Sure. Do they still need to identify some more playmakers? Yeah, but DJ Shark is stepping up, starting to get his feel in the offense. I'm on Ross St. Brown, had a great second half and was a productive slot guy for them. Jameson Williams probably not ready by the time that game plays. So, but Hawkinson's back and healthy. I mean, they've got a little bit of offensive juice there. They really think this could be the year for DeAndre Swift. I was talking to them right as they were about to start camp, and they just sort of felt like, it's going to come together this year for Swift, and they view him in the same way that the Saints use Alvin Kamara. I don't know that he'll be quite that good, but I mean, that's the type of player. Aiden Hutchinson, I'm not worried. Their offensive line is good. Their defensive line should be a little bit better. Do they have the bodies at linebacker, corner, safety? I don't know. I mean, I think the Eagles will be able to move the ball on the Lions. That's the question, is whether they can make enough big plays defensively to stop a team like that. So I would still lean Philly, but this Detroit team is going to be interesting, I think.
Yeah, the over-under for the first game of the season is 2, as in touchdowns that the Eagles win by. Will it be more than 2 or less than 2? Right now, I'm leaning toward the over. Sorry about that, Dan Campbell. Not just yet, Dan Campbell. But here's a legit question about the Birds. They've got Detroit week 1, and we're all leaning toward Detroit. Me a little more heavy-handed than you two guys, but we're leaning toward the Eagles being able to beat the Lions. Then Minnesota, then Washington, then Jacksonville. At Washington, home against Minnesota and Jacksonville after opening in Detroit. If the Eagles are any less than 3-1, is that not a bad start for them?
Yeah, I mean, look at that schedule. I would stack it up against the other 31 teams, and I bet you couldn't find 3 or 4 more teams with a more desirable 4-game slate than that. I mean, if you're going to catch the Lions, that seems like a team that would be better towards the end of the season, I would say, than the beginning.
Are you saying that? Because that's exactly what I said. And the others have gone, no. You want to get the Lions early because they don't know they're going to be bad yet. They've washed away last year, and I'm with you. I'd rather play the Lions right away. Get them out of the way. I look at it from more of an Eagle perspective than a Lion perspective.
Yeah.
Get as many wins as you can.
Right.
Build up a momentum. Prove that last year's second half wasn't a fluke. I like the fact that the Lions are on the road to Eagles' early schedule.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I could see them having, obviously early last year, the Lions, that first game, if I remember correctly, they fall way behind and fight all the way back and just short, they lose that crazy game early in the season to the Ravens, so they hadn't kind of figured things out yet. Now, obviously, it's not like they figured a lot out last year, but by the end of the season, you saw a pretty competitive football team, at least that one that wasn't going to embarrass themselves. So I assume the same trend might happen again as they kind of sort out some of these young roles. I mean, the secondary worries me. Linebackers still kind of an unknown at this point. Offensively, they're going to be better. But, yeah, I mean, that schedule, that opening quartet is nice for Philly. So, yeah, I think I'm with you. If they start 2-2, is it going to be full-on panic? No. You could see Minnesota winning that game, right? I mean, there's a couple of games that are at least in the moderate toss-up category there, but it certainly would behoove them to take advantage of this portion of the schedule, I would think.
All right, guys, so working through some internet.
Yeah, I think Ricky's frozen up on us. All right, got to get your take on the whole Deshaun Watson thing. It's the talk of the National Football League. we want to stay on the field and talk about this story is so huge you cannot ignore it. No surprise to me yesterday that the NFL appealed the suspension that Judge Sue Robinson gave. If you are going to negotiate the power into basically overrule, then when given the chance, if you don't think the punishment is enough, you're kind of obligated to do just that, appeal it and say, no, we'll actually make the decision. I was not surprised. My usual partner, Johnny Mack, was. He thought the NFL was going to try and establish the fact that it is independent. It's independent to the point that if the independent arbitrator gets it right in their opinion, well, then all is well and good. But if it's not, of course, Goodell's going to jump in. How much more heavy-handed do you think he's going to be when the NFL puts forth what they believe the suspension should be and probably will be, even if it goes further into the court of law?
Yeah, I mean the findings of the case that Sue Robinson investigated, the essentially the written portion of what her report said will not change, right? It's not a matter of introducing new facts or, oh, did you think about this? No, it's basically taking the list of things she considered in assessing her 6-game suspension. I mean, some people have been confused about that. That's why I'm kind of taking a step back here a little bit. Taking those facts, her report, and saying, you had the right idea, the wrong suspension. That's what the league is essentially saying. They felt the crimes that she's saying he committed, the wrongdoings, not crime necessarily from a legal standpoint, but those are worth more than 6 games. That's the league's stance by appealing. They're basically saying it should be 12. It should be 17 games. It should be indefinite, whatever that number they come up with is. So, that's obviously the bottom line right there. And I don't think there's been a lot of resistance to it. I think most people are sitting back after having heard those bigger numbers before, feel like, yeah, are we misinterpreting this? Are we kind of reading it wrong here based on what she wrote? It was a little bit of a surprise to some, but 6 had been the number that a lot of people have been predicting for the few weeks leading up to it. So it wasn't a shock to me just because I'd heard it so many times at that point. But certainly it wasn't all that well received, and the NFL is trying to, kind of rectify that, I think, in terms of the PR game.
All right. Stating that I'm playing devil's advocate here because I don't have a problem with what the NFL did, and I sure as hell wasn't surprised by it a little bit. But to look at the other side of the equation, does the NFL put too much emphasis on public opinion? The court of public opinion and their fan base that is evaluating them. You have to weigh the downside if the public opinion is going against you. What actually happens? What is the next shoe to drop? Are they going to not watch NFL action? I don't think so. Right. That's my partner, John McMullen's stance. Well, why do they actually worry about public opinion? I think any corporation should, at least in part, be worried about the people that they're putting their product out there for. Does the NFL worry about it too much, in your opinion?
I mean, compared to other similarly sized corporations who are, know that their fans are brand loyal, to a certain degree. Obviously, I think the NFL might have turned some fans off along the way for various reasons. Whether it was something they viewed as not being part of their value system, or if they feel like the product wasn't that good, then they'll leave. And I think the league and any other big business knows that. Now, obviously, I'm a little bit of a biased narrator here in the sense that I work for the league now, but yeah, it obviously, I think if you were to compare it to, Coke or Google or any other massive brand like that, this is how they operate, right? They want to get a feel for the temperature and get to know what people are thinking. And they do a lot of trial balloons to see, like, what would the reaction be to X? What about Y? How about Z? And you throw them all up there and see what people's responses are. And that kind of helps at least shape your policy, or at least give you an idea of, okay, this is the blowback we're going to get when we announce Z, right? So it helps prepare you. And I think PR people, and will always say that, they're better at putting out fires if they know the fire is coming, right? You can get a few buckets of water ready to help put it out. So if they're going to do something they know is unpopular, whether it's the league or any other, massive Fortune 500 type operation, right? they want to be prepared for what the blowback might be.
I want to get your opinion on this, E, because it's a pretty big deal. I think, that's just my opinion, the last couple of years, the NFL has been able to not worry all that much about Thursday night football. They had someone willing to pay a big number for it. The numbers in comparison to other numbers with NFL TV ratings was certainly lower, but that's newness. People just weren't used to watching Thursday night football. Well, that's kind of gone by the wayside now because it's been a couple of years since they initiated Thursday night football. First ever streaming. Most of the country is streaming these days. Somebody's got some streaming service, a smart TV, the ability to get it. Will they eventually share it somewhere else, or is it purely going to be solely on streaming? How big a deal is this for the National Football League that they hit the ground running with the streaming on Amazon on Thursday night for the future broadcast of the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, if there's ever a business to test this and sort of say we believe in the future of streaming, this is the one. I mean, take the most popular sport, do it on a night when maybe you could experiment a little bit, right? Sundays, you want to sort of slow play that a little bit. Monday Night Football still has that traditional in front of the TV field for some people, what have you. So Thursday ended up being the perfect platform, and you have Amazon willing to fork over a massive package to earn the rights to this thing. And I think they're going to do a bang up job for it. I think they're going to help change people's behavior. Again, I'm not trying to sound like a mouthpiece for the league here. I honestly think that their belief in the power and the staying power of streaming, and that people are moving more in that direction over time. And that they're going to kind of help nudge people, sort of push people in the, well, I want to watch my team play, don't I? Right? My team's on prime time. I'm going to miss the game, right? And there's still going to be that transition period where I think you let bars and restaurants maybe, use that service and broadcast it in those settings. So obviously there's some talk about that and different ways to kind of, bridge the gap or whatever, but the future's here. It's coming. I think that's the way it's headed.
All right, E, last question, and certainly give you the right to change your mind. We'll do that right here on Birds 365 because we'll shortly have you back on before the season starts.
Yeah.
Not going to ask you who's going to win the Super Bowl. Instead, I'm going to ask you who's going to win the MVP. This Rodgers guy's had a pretty good grasp on it the last couple of years, but he doesn't have Devontae Adams anymore. There's no standout, unquestioned. This is the team that's going to win 14 games now out of 17 rather than 14 out of 16. Front runner MVP candidate for you here in early August.
Yeah, I think if Tom Brady is close to being in contention, he'll win it just because everybody will sort of want to give him the honorary lifetime title. Let's put that possibility to the side for a minute. I mean, nostalgia is great, and I would love to see him go out in style and not limp out of his career. But if something like that doesn't happen, the obvious candidates, let's not forget Patrick Mahomes is pretty good, even if he finished last year on a little bit of a down note. I think some of that will have been fixed by the time he hits the field again. Justin Herbert, we saw, match Mahomes throw for throw a couple times last year, throw brilliantly in some games. If they can protect him, he's got a shot. He's that good. Obviously, Russell Wilson in Denver, just the new setting, coming over as the savior, you'd have to think he'd be in the mix, even if his career has been on a little bit of a downward trajectory. You'd say since about mid-season 2020, things have kind of gone off track a little bit, but, those are the first kind of names that come to mind. Obviously Rodgers will be in there. He's special, even if he doesn't have Devontae. So you got to do it a different way, but we know Brady, obviously, but I tend to think that one of these young guns can do it. Burrow has to be in the mix as well. And there's just so many good talents at that position. It's going to be hard for a non-quarterback to win it.
You touched on almost all of them. The only one you left out was Josh Allen, who I might put at
the top of probably
the list.
The favorite too, right? Of course. Not too good at this, boys. Yeah.
But I really liked your Brady line of thinking. When in doubt, give it to the old guy as he's walking out the door, who happens to be the GOAT, greatest of all time. As a fellow old guy. I had not thought along those lines. Yeah. Shame on me for not. Good for you for going there. I think he might even be the favorite, or should be the favorite over Josh Allen. But
He could be.
great stuff. We're going to let you run. Thank you very much. We're going to have you back on next time.
Yes.
You can mention Josh Allen when I ask you about the MVP.
I'll write him down.
We'll make you make a Super Bowl prediction when we get you on once we get into September before the season starts. Thanks for joining us today.
It was a pleasure, boys. See ya.
Thank you.